Good afternoon and welcome to Vantage Ventures presentation of our Real Talk today on MedTech. Our discussion features Vantage Ventures residents, Dr. Stephen Valentine, Associate Professor at WVU and Vice President of Research at Invergen. And I'm sorry if I butchered that. We also have with us Trevor Moon, the CEO of NeuroWired, and we're going to talk today about their respective startup and their products. My name is Greg Caprera, and I'll be your moderator for this event today, and I'm very excited to be here with you. So to dive right in, Dr. Valentine, can you tell us a little bit about your product and what your vision is for it?
Yes. So we basically, in the world of analytical chemistry, we use a technique called mass spectrometry. And mass spectrometry can tell us basically if you're looking at the chemical constituents within a sample. So it's a powerful technique. It's a very sensitive technique, but the front end part of it has not been changed in 40 years. And so this portion that's the front end part of it is called an ion source. And the ion source basically creates ions from biological molecules like proteins, DNA, metabolites, and allows the mass spectrometer to record the masses of these molecules. And so we believe that we have a product that does a much better job of producing those ions so that the mass spectrometer can do its job of being taking and making very sensitive measurements. And just to give you some examples of where mass spectrometers are used, in about 2013, mass spectrometers made their first entrance into the operation room, to be used for intraoperative analysis, as an example. And we believe that we have a source that's superior to what was presented in 2013 and is still used today for those types of analyses. They're also used extensively in the pharmaceutical industry. And so, for example, the pharmaceutical industry is making a lot of drugs that are protein-based, so antibody-based, and they need to be able to characterize those drugs. And mass spectrometry is a tool that does that. And we also believe that our product, our ion source, will allow for much more sensitive measurements to be made for those compounds, as well as DNA, RNA. So we've seen with, for example, the outbreak of COVID, how important mRNA is, for example, in the development of vaccines. And so we have a very sensitive analysis tool or a device that can be coupled to any mass spectrometer that improves the sensitivity of the measurement as well as the quality of the data that can be obtained from the mass spectrometer.
Okay, wonderful. So it has application in research as well as in frontline medicine.
Correct. That's
Outstanding.
Right.
Trevor, would you tell us a little bit about NeuroWired, please?
Yeah, sure. So NeuroWired is a WVU spinoff company. It was founded by Dr. Yakovenko and Dr. Gritsenko out of the neuroscience department. And essentially, we are a company that focuses in software for decoding movement intent to movement. So we develop software tools that enable us to use your body's natural biological signals, through electromyography or EMG, and use those to simulate physics and dynamics of your hand, forearm, legs, arms, neck, shoulder, whatever you would like to simulate or control a device with. And so what that allows us to do is hopefully make human machine interfaces more intuitive, more natural, and not this kind of foreign entity that happens to be either attached in the case of an artificial limb, or, instead of having a joystick playing a computer game, now you're actually using your hand in, open space as opposed to holding something. And so the way we kind of see this is moving into surgical robotics. And I think it encompasses the whole idea of, especially with the pandemic and COVID, the need for remote care and telemedicine. And so the idea with that is, we need surgeons, we need, frontline workers and medical workers to be able to provide the best, safe, and most effective care, even if they can't be physically there. And robotic surgery opens up a unique opportunity in the fact that you don't have to be bedside. You can be in a different room or maybe a different, location around the world and still be able to control and perform, whatever surgeries, that's a specialty case, um, you know, robustly, safely, and more effectively by hopefully providing more information, physiological information about how they're performing those procedures. So you have more objective ways to evaluate whether that particular surgeon should operate on that day or should operate in general. And for residents, that's more twofold in helping them become better surgeons than the previous generation.
Outstanding. So when you talk about EMG, you're not talking about an invasive sort of a needle monitor, but you're actually talking about what's resting right on the skin, correct?
Yeah, surface EMG, correct.
Surface EMG. Thank you very much. Fascinating for me, by the way, because when I was studying motor learning at Florida State University 30 years ago, we couldn't figure out what caused intention to actually make you move. We were just fascinated by the fact that there was a motor schema to do that. Sorry if I'm getting a little too excited here. But we're really focused today on the entrepreneurial piece of what you're doing here at WVU with Vantage Ventures. So can you talk to me a little bit about some of the challenges that you faced from an entrepreneurial experience, not necessarily your research, but really getting your startup up and moving a little bit, Trevor?
Yeah, so it was I wasn't part of that original process that kind of laid the foundation. It just happened to be that Dr. Gritsenko and Yakovenko had this idea in their previous PIs when they were going through their doctorate programs. Were always super big in trying to translate, lab tech and research into more commercial settings. And so it just happened to be that in this past year, they ended up getting an SBIR STTR phase 1 from the National Science Foundation. And that's when I was kind of coming through Dr. Yakovenko's lab. But coming from a technical background, the biggest thing for us was, how do we go about finding additional funding? So it's not just a short-term venture, and how we can sustain this throughout the years. And I think the biggest thing for us, in addition to that, was we think we have this awesome tech, right? But is it something that, consumers need? And I think that was one thing that for us, when we started this journey back in August and going through like NSF's I-Core programs. So we did a couple of those to really try to figure out, okay, what's the actual need? And like I said before, there's kind of all sorts of different applications, and it's really just kind of how do you start molding that? And I think the biggest thing for us so far has been trying to network and find people and develop a team that can work off of each other's strengths, to someone that's really good about taking an idea to a concept, to an MVP or minimum valuable product, or someone who's really good about financial strategy, which actually for us, we just brought on someone to help us with those sort of things. Yeah.
Do you find that? Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Ask you. Do you find the environment in West Virginia conducive to helping you get that network established, or through the Vantage Ventures process at all?
Yeah, I think it's been a tremendous help. WVU is obviously a huge resource, not only for North Central West Virginia, but even regionally and nationally. And I think having that name attached certainly helps. Actually, one of our biggest onboardings for us was Pete Carnegie, who our kind of connection came through WVU just on the research side of things. And he has his own companies and he's had his own startups. And it was just pure dumb luck that we were able to find him and even our WVU network. And Vantage obviously plays a huge role in, putting on different seminars, different Q&As, and bringing in different and continual, opportunities to discuss various components of, starting a business. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity just in terms of, programming. But in addition to, I think, I don't know, for me also being like an outdoors person, right? There's no other better place, right? It's up there. And so I think there's a lot of attractiveness if you kind of gravitate towards that. And with those resources and programming available, just makes it even better.
Thank you very much. Dr. Valentine, any challenges that you guys have had to face in your transition from a research model to a business model?
Sure. So basically, we're where NeuroWired was probably a year ago or so. So
Okay.
we formed the company. We have not done the I-Core program. We're getting ready to do that this summer. But basically, the challenges that we've had is that we both have day jobs. So I will say Invivagen was started by myself and my colleague, Professor Pong Lee, here in the WVU Department of Chemistry. And we both have day jobs. So we're trying to, well, how do you go about writing an SBIR proposal, for example? Because that requires that whoever is the principal investigator on the SBIR be full-time or at least 50% employed by the company, which is something that we can't do. And so we just have had challenges like that. And so one of the things where Vantage Ventures has helped us tremendously is by providing us with an address where we can say this is where the company is, so that we can actually submit those SBIR proposals. We have submitted one SBIR proposal. We're in the process of submitting another two, one to the DoD and one to the NSF, we hope, here in the near future. We've submitted one to the National Institutes of Health in February. It's also provided us with sort of introductions to different individuals. And so now I'm grateful to be introduced to NeuroWired, Trevor and NeuroWired, because there are certainly many questions I'd love to ask of them. So that's how we've benefited. And certainly from the community here at West Virginia University, we've benefited from the research office and, how do you go about, for example, patenting this technology. And so we had to work through the tech transfer office here to gain the patent. And then now we're in the process of, well, how do we gain rights to the technology as the company? So we're just sort of feeling our way around, learning new things, being introduced to different people. And that's been very helpful to us because, people have been through this before and they kind of know how to do it. So we've been very grateful for that help.
I think one of the biggest things in technology is that we believe that technology will be the solution, but it still takes people to power it. At the end of the day, relationships will drive a lot of your success in this arena. Trevor, I'm sorry if I cut you off there. Go ahead, please.
No, I think what he brings up is a great point, and that's kind of where this last year for us, 8 months really, have been kind of just feeling around in different spaces, connecting, making those relationships, and really trying to navigate those waters of, okay, well, what's our strategy moving forward? Who is going to be doing the work? It was fortunate for both me and NeuroWire that I was just finishing up my master's. And so I'm actually the PI carrying out that phase 1 work.
That's
and
what
so,
I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
So yeah, you guys are chuckling because you're doing
the way that kind of,
because I used to write that kind of work.
Yeah, so it was kind of ironic and funny because going through, I was still trying to finish up my master's, and we had these discussions with Sergey and Val, and kind of like, oh yeah, that would be an interesting idea. Like let's pursue it, and if it happens, then awesome. Like that'll be great. And fortunately enough, it did. So I think, but kind of back to the main point, I think doing especially like the I-Corps programs introduced us to a lot of different people and a lot of different ideas and problems, especially for us in the surgical robotic space, because it wasn't an area we initially were looking into. We didn't think there was any application there. I mean, the technology came out of a DARPA haptics grant back in 2015, and that whole thing was to develop the next, generation of myoelectric prosthetic controllers. Completely different space. And so actually going out and talking to people in prosthetics and clinicians who help fit these was like, maybe this isn't our best path. And so I think kind of moving around and talking to people is the best way to navigate that.
That's
that was
wonderful.
long-winded, but
No. I had a quick question for you because, right now in sort of negotiating the rights to use the technology, we have to come up with a business plan. Well, my partner and neither one of us has written a business plan. So I'm wondering, in writing your business plan, did you use the I-Corps program to do that, or did you guys do that yourselves?
So funny enough, we're actually still doing that.
Yeah, it's an
So,
ongoing process.
so the whole phase one for us was to figure out what that beachhead market was going to be and what that plan and business model was going to be. And so now we kind of have started formulating those details, and now we just need to put, pen to paper. So that's something that we're still navigating as well. So I wish we were maybe a little bit further ahead so I could help you. But one thing I will say, because we're also preparing a phase two, our phase two to NSF, is that there's also a lot of resources available for proposal management companies. So actually, we are with a company out of California who's helping write our commercialization plan so that we can focus on the research objectives and focus on the technical work and kind of give them the idea of like, yeah, we would like to try this, maybe do that. And then they can, fancy it up with all the lingo and terminology for us. So I think there's resources for every component to it. And Dawnbreaker, which is partnered with NSF, also helps with that.
Okay, that's interesting. I didn't know that. So I'm going to write that down. Proposal management. Huh.
No, that's always one of the great things about having such a great panel discussion is we're helping each other and helping everyone else at the same time. So, kind of an interesting question I have for you may not be completely related to what you're doing, but how do each of you see the research that you're doing and the work of your startup influencing the startup ecosystem in West Virginia in any way, shape, or form?
Who would you like to go first, Greg?
Oh, Stephen, go ahead, please.
Okay. All right. Well, what I hope is that we sort of blaze a trail. I mean, certainly NeuroWired is sort of blazing a trail for us, but we show others within our respective departments, within our respective colleges. That's what I would like to see. More of the technology that's developed within the university make its way out into the world here in West Virginia and provide jobs and provide sort of like you say, an ecosystem, technology ecosystem. And I'm just hoping that we're sort of pioneers in that respect, and others can look to us and see how we did it or come and talk with us and figure it out for themselves as well.
Wonderful. Trevor, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, and I would echo the same types of things. I mean, for me, the biggest thing being from West Virginia and West Virginia native my whole life is I have had many friends and family leave the state because there wasn't, they didn't think there was that opportunity to stay and have high skill, high technical people stay within the state. So having success with, say, WVU spinoff companies, or having things like Vantage Venture and all these different programs, and most recently that transplant program. It's slipping my mind right now, from Brad Smith.
Are you talking about the Attracting Remote Workers program?
Yeah. So, I mean, opportunities like that, more and more incentive to keep people here and also bring people in. And I think the more success stories there are, and having this, interactive panels where we can talk, amongst ourselves about how we did it or how someone else did it, will be a tremendous benefit, both for, in-state and out-of-state opportunities coming inward.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. No, that remote worker program is fascinating. I've been talking with some people around the state that are working on their marketing package so that they can get their fair share, I would say, of the folks that want to live in Utah or in Denver, and get them to realize that you can have just as fantastic an experience in West Virginia, if not better. So that's a neat thing.
Mm-hmm.
One other thing, I think we've got time for one more question, and that's really more of a personal piece for each of you. I was thinking about is, as a decision maker in your company, what's the process that you go through to make sure that you're not exposing yourself to any kind of bias, or that you have a process in place to make quality decisions? Trevor, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think it goes back to who you're surrounding yourself with as a team. Obviously, I think there's a threshold for having too many opinions in the same room. But with us being, 4 or 5 people, and all of us kind of having different perspectives, even on, topics that are very, we're knowledgeable in, I think it's just more of self-discipline to say, okay, you need to be able to separate yourself from what you think is best versus what you think maybe the consumer wants. And I think, and I know that might not be super helpful straight up, but like it really gets nailed into your head after doing, say, like the regional I-Corps programs or the national programs, because those instructors, the ones that help guide you through those, they will not allow it. So being able to have someone there in your corner, whoever that may be and whatever their background is, preferably someone who knows very little to nothing about it, because they're going to come in with a completely unbiased and blind view of what you're talking about, to kind of steer you in the way so that you can have those internal discussions. So I think the biggest thing to kind of summarize that is finding those who have, one, either done it before, or two, someone who can just really ground the group, and really separate, personal versus, what is the most logical in terms of what's right for the business, and kind of keeping those separated and independent from one another.
Stephen, how about your product? And just so I can maybe add some context to my question for you, I'm listening to what you're talking about, and having worked in the area of thermocyclers and deep well processing and reagents and so forth. My question would be sort of, you're in more of a B2B business model, possibly. So would you see a difference there in how you approach the decision-making process?
Yes. So basically, right now we're thinking B2B, but there's that could change. So because it's just the two of us. One of the things that we're recognizing is that we need a scientific advisory board. So we're beginning to think about establishing a scientific advisory board. But in terms of sort of making the right decision in sort of that B2B model, what we're trying to do is to identify the correct individuals to be on that board and really help us to make those right decisions. And so, for example, I have a colleague who has West Virginia connections, lives only a few, maybe 100 miles away or so up in Pennsylvania, has his own company, is a scientist. And so we're looking at individuals like that who have gone through this process, have established successful businesses, and we're thinking about inviting them on as onto our scientific advisory board. And he's established a sort of B2B model. I will make this component that will fit onto your mass spectrometer. And so he's done that. And he has a pretty good track record as being a single sole proprietor. He doesn't have a big corporation, but this is something that he has, a small business, something that he's always wanted to do, never really wanted to grow it past that. But we feel that he can help us with some of these decisions in how to grow our business, albeit ours will be somewhat different than his. Certainly we would like to grow ours to be bigger. But finding the right people to help advise us, I think, is really important. I think it's critical. I've been involved in startup companies in the past. One was successful, one wasn't successful. And so I think having the right people to advise you is really critical.
Well, thank you very much. It's really exciting to see what you're both doing. I guess my final question is, if I came to you, Stephen, and said, what advice would you have for a young West Virginian that would like to do, get engaged and start up their business? What is one critical piece of advice you could give them?
I guess two things. Don't give up and look for all the resources. They can be, sleuth them out. They can be hard to find, but they're there. And so if you sort of attach yourself to the right individuals and you really sleuth out those resources, you can find them, and don't give up. I guess that would be the advice that I would give.
Trevor, any thoughts?
Yeah, be stubborn. don't accept defeat, because it's one of those things where you're always going to be learning something new, and especially with finding the right people, they're going to bring a new idea or multiple ideas. So I think the biggest thing is being stubborn to don't get it, let it get you down, and then two, being able to be teachable and that willingness to learn, because if you can't do those two things, then it's not gonna pan out. So I think the main thing is just to be adaptable. Everything, and even if you're well established, and I think being able just to pivot and shift priorities, but having kind of that infrastructure in place. And I think that again goes back to who that group is and having the right people there.
Wonderful. Well, that kind of concludes the series of questions that I had. James, do you have any questions for us?
No, but I do have a couple of comments that hopefully we might find a little bit helpful. So, we've been working
please.
With our general counsel and our patent committee, trying to establish guidelines for licensing, and trying to make WVU a more entrepreneur startup friendly environment. So appreciate your patience in this process, and realize that each of you have dealt with us, and we're just trying to improve that process as we go along. But one of the things we have had discussions on are business plans. And I heard you both mention that. And general counsel typically has required that we get a business plan before they're willing to consider a license. The basic concept there is they want to make sure that you are an entity that's able to perform. So basically want to know that you know what you're doing, kind of, at least, and have a way of making money at some point of time, so that if we license the technology to you, it's a good investment of the technology. The flip side to that is if we don't license it to your entity, and if we could license it to somebody else that's more capable, that's more beneficial to the university and to our community, quite frankly. We love to see our researchers or entrepreneurs succeed, but we want to make sure that they're capable of doing that. And again, to the extent that you don't have that information or that you're not comfortable putting it together, there are resources available at the university that can help out. For example, Vantage has helped people work with folks at the business school to put together, business plans and stuff like that. So those resources are available. What we're trying to find is a path that makes it easier. So you may not actually need a, conventional business plan, but, again, just being able to show it, at least a pitch deck or something that shows, how you're going to be, actually make a product or make money, and that your business is viable. That's really the message that they're trying to understand. So hopefully in the future that gets easier. And again, I just encourage you to reach out to those resources so that, you can get the assistance. ICOR, I think, is a fantastic program. As Trevor had mentioned, I think a lot of people have gone into ICOR with, idea A and exited with idea Z, or at least A prime. So, and that's much better than what they entered in with, and it sounds like a very tedious process and a waste of time, but, I guarantee you'll get more value out of it than what you put into if you're serious about what you're doing. I know a lot of people that go into this kind of half-heartedly, and they get out of it what they put into it. So it really is a great way to go. You learn more about yourself, your customer, your product. So I think it's really a great thing to do. SBIR, STTR, I don't know if you've heard, but Ariane Olesh is back at the business school now. She's leading Startup West Virginia. She's a great resource. She's asked me to refer everybody to her that's doing SBIRs and STTR. So I encourage you to reach out to her, as you make those applications. She can help you find the resources to be more successful in that. I mean, that's another place where the ICOR is helpful. Your success rate of getting an SBIR with ICOR goes up exponentially, it sounds like. So, it's really an important thing to do. Which again gets back to what I mentioned about the business plan. They also want to see that you're a viable business that has, really a plan how to make product and make money. So, that's what they're looking for as well. Hopefully in the future, we as a university can develop, even better resources and, provide more assistance to folks doing startups. And, that's really what we're trying to achieve. And, over time, I expect that will continue to improve. And, again, I just encourage you to reach out to us or anybody at the university in these types of roles that can help you. As you mentioned, licensing technology is part of what we do. So, as we can, work together, figure out, what the business looks like, the best way to get that deal together. We're trying to develop improved templates to make it simpler. Trying to follow what other universities are doing so that, we're more, I guess, user friendly is what we're trying to see. We're all interested in seeing everybody succeed, including our entrepreneurs, their businesses, and our community. We obviously have to look out for the university's interests while we do that. But I think if we're all pulling the same direction, we can accomplish a lot more. That's what we were trying to do. And again, if you have any questions, me and my team, we can provide you resources as well. So look forward to working with you all.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Ellie, any thoughts on your end?
Hi, y'all. I think this was a great discussion, fabulous information. I appreciate everybody joining in today. And I think Greg covered all my questions. I gave him a couple prior, so he took care of me. And I guess I'm a little bit spoiled because I work at Vantage Ventures, so I know Steve and Trevor would be available to me if I had any additional questions. But I encourage everybody to visit our website at vantageventures.io if you have you want to complete an intake form, and we'll put you on our list for our mailings and emails and everything we send out. And it was a great session. Thanks, James, for your input too. Greg, you were a great moderator. Look forward to doing this again with you all sometime in the future.
Thanks for setting this up, Ellie.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Everyone have a great day.
Everybody have a great day.
Talk to you soon, guys. Take care.
Thank you. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.